It's the best damn pod in the land. I'm Chad Stryker. With me, as always, Dan Dibjack. Dan, we're back to normal. I'm back in Ohio. How are you?
Back in the homeland. I'm great, man. I'm glad to be, back on and talking a little Buckeye football. We got a lot of other things going on in Buckeye Nation too. The women's hockey team brought the Natty, which was
Yeah,
awesome.
that was
Phenomenal
awesome.
game. It was such a good game
Happy
to
for them.
watch, man. I was so impressed. A lot of good stuff going on. Pistol team won
Yeah,
the Natty. I think the
yeah,
fencing team won the Natty. We had
they
a wrestling
did.
Natty.
Yeah. I'm so happy for the women's hockey team, though. You know that I do. I think there's an underappreciation for the amount of effort that goes into some of those other sports, because we do get focused on football. Football's the breadwinner, and the other sports, those athletes, they put in just as much time, and so congratulations to all of them, and that's good, and it's good for the university.
Oh, absolutely. And Ross Bjork was interviewed afterwards, and he talked about it. He's like, listen, no, make no mistake about it. He kind of reiterated what he said in his opening press conference that football is the engine that makes everything go. But he's like, man, if we're gonna have a sport, let's win.
Right. Let's
And
be the best.
they're kicking some butt on a number of levels. I know the basketball team they're not in the big tournament, but when you look at what their season was,
They should have been.
They
should.
should have
I don't
been.
mean to interrupt you, but they should have been in the tournament.
A
I
little
couldn't.
too late.
Yeah, I couldn't believe. I mean, I will say they got hosed. I know we don't do a lot of basketball, but they got hosed against Illinois in the Big Ten tournament. Like that.
Yeah.
That was clear and obvious. Like there's no doubt about it. That Ohio State should have won that game. And I was actually watching it because I was interested in it. And, I was like, man, Illinois is getting every single call, everyone.
Yep. Yeah. Not unlike that Iowa West Virginia ladies game yesterday. You don't think the NCAA wants an LSU Iowa rematch at some point, do you?
No, there's no way that would ever happen. Whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Let's talk a little football.
Yeah. So thanks for hanging with us last week too, guys. I was like I mentioned in London, and then I won't go into all the details, but basically trying to get home Friday. I had multiple delayed flights, one canceled flight, which was an 8-hour flight. So we didn't get to do a show Friday or Saturday because I was just trying to get to Ohio. At any rate, we're back. We're at it. So big list of visitors over the weekend, Dan, and I know that we didn't talk about this for our show notes, but Dorian Brew was here. I think they were going to end up recruiting him as a safety. And the other one that caught my eye was Trajan Oden, the defensive tackle out of North Carolina, had like glowing references for Ohio State. He's one I'd really like to pull in. And after like doing a little bit of reading and watching a little bit of his tape, he's got what you and I would like to call the never-ending motor.
Yep.
And so takeaways from the weekend, man. I know we didn't talk about it, but I know I saw some interesting tweets from El Presidente Sanchez as well. So
yeah, that was interesting. Mr. Sanchez tweeted something that gave me the impression that that some of these kids might not be thinking about the right thing at this point. He's like, get on the train, man. Get developed.
Yep.
You're gonna, look at what's going on in the NFL. Look at how these guys are getting paid at the next level. Don't be short-sighted. So I'm sure, they're in people's ears. I think it was Brew. Was he here this weekend or is he coming
No,
now?
he's coming. He's
coming, right?
Yeah,
which is good because
things
have been quiet with him,
right.
Since that June or since whatever date that was in February. I think it was his mom's birthday that came and went.
Yeah, January.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, it was a huge weekend. By all accounts, it was incredibly successful. Quarterback carousels changed a little bit. We've got a boom coming.
I thought we'd have one coming out that weekend, but
I wouldn't be shocked if we don't have 3 or 4 silents.
Yeah.
Silent commits. I hope that Alford's a silent. Somebody's a silent because, James did his eyes.
Yeah.
And that coincided with, I think, the hockey game. So people were wondering if it had something to do with that. I don't think it did. So I wouldn't be surprised if Alford's not a silent and he's going to, get in the fold come here on the 30th. So we'll see.
Well, they rolled out the red carpet this weekend, though, because CJ was around, and I mean there was a lot of chatter about this weekend. So it looked good. Everything on social media looked good, and everything I've heard looked good. So it sounded like they did a bang up job again. And Jerry Emick, he and those guys, they do such a good job with all that stuff. So,
and my brother and I were talking this morning about it. We seem to be in on more national high level recruits than I can ever remember.
Yeah.
Like legitimately in. We're not just getting, that consolation, top 5 inclusion type thing. We got some big time players that are, considering us. And, you can't help but to wonder that a little bit of that has to do with Saban leaving. And
it is.
All the
Thank
changing
you, Nick Saban.
All the changes in the coaching, across the country in the cycle. We'll see what happens. But I'm excited.
I have to wonder. So I don't know if you listened to Bucknuts yesterday, but Dan Rubin and I can't remember, Dave Biddle were discussing the exact thing we discussed about 2 weeks ago, which was, is it Ohio State and Georgia and then everybody else? And they both felt that way too, that like the next tier would be Texas, Oregon, but as far as what's happening with recruits, you're watching Georgia and Ohio State, and then that's how those dominoes begin to fall. So if you think about it, the way Tavian St. Clair jumped on the 2025 bandwagon, and now Ryan Montgomery is going to end up elsewhere. So the dominoes fall when they commit to Ohio State or Georgia, a la Jared Curtis. So now we're in on a couple of the other kids, Dia, I can't remember his last name, but
Dia Bell.
Yeah, Dia Bell. Yeah.
That's Roger Bell's son, the old
right.
basketball player.
Yeah, Roger Bell.
Yeah. It's interesting because, we talked about Georgia, Ohio State being it, but what was one of the schools I mentioned to keep an eye out on for? And I'm not talking about LSU, but I named like 2 or 3 that, are probably going to be in it, right?
You said USC.
Boom. You see their weekend?
Yeah, they had a big weekend.
I mean, they've only got 5 recruits, but their average ranking is something absurd, like almost 99.
Yeah.
And Ohio State was, holding steady with a nice gap. And now, I mean, they flipped a kid from Georgia.
Yeah.
A Georgia kid from Georgia. They picked up another
2026 though.
I want to say they were 25s.
Okay. I thought one of them was a 2026, and I remember thinking, okay, big deal.
Well, their quarterback is a 202026. Juju Lewis.
That's what it was. Juju Lewis.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
But they've got 5 commits right now in the 25 class. That hire of DeAnthony Lynn from UCLA as a defensive coordinator, they hired the Rams defensive line coach. There's rumblings that Aaron Donald might come on as an analyst.
Interesting.
So watch out for them, because they've got the money. And Lincoln Riley, I mean, he'll do whatever he's got to do to win.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, last year, with if they had a defense, and this is that same thing from the 2020 season with Ohio State. If it wasn't for the Coach Coombs era, they probably win 2 natties. And then the same with Alex Grinch in USC. We were same with them. They were having to put up 50 to beat everybody, and eventually, you're going to get to a point where you can't put up the 50, or somebody else can put up 50, and you're in trouble. So, have
you ever seen one coach more responsible for completely loaded teams not winning a natty other than Alex Grinch?
No.
I mean, he's broke dreams at Ohio State. He's broken dreams at Oklahoma. He's killed dreams at USC. And then I think, didn't he get hired? That's just mind-boggling.
He just got hired again. Yeah. All right. So getting into our show notes, and this is the trending topic for me because it's an interesting thing. We are Ohio State, and you and I talked, we should be able to go get anybody we want. Well, here we are. We're on like running back coach plan F. Because Gillespie didn't come, and then DeMarco Murray doesn't come, and then we're working down this list, and there were I think we all wanted Eddie George, and then I know you threw out JT Barrett, and
I got another outside of the box for you that I thought of this morning. We'll get to it.
Yeah. So what is happening? Is it just the time of year?
That's what it is.
All this
mean, let's listen. We want to downplay the loss of Tony Alford, and we want to point to the fact that he's had a lot of fails on the recruiting trail, and he's only had one guy, one 5-star. He's only had one guy drafted that he recruited in 9 years. But man, it was an FU to Ryan.
Oh yeah.
The timing to announce it on Ryan's birthday during spring break when nobody's on campus and everybody's on vacation.
Yep.
I mean, he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. Are we going to be okay in the long run? Absolutely. I'm still not worried about it. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now is the timing. A couple guys have leveraged raises, Gillespie. I think Gillespie's, he already had his raise.
Yeah, he did.
I think that, Murray definitely leveraged us. I mean, he interviewed at Michigan too. So he was trying to do something, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's the timing. Unlike Alford, a lot of these guys don't want to do the wrong thing by their school, and the timing sucks.
Yeah.
I think the Looper guy in Missouri is kind of next on the list, but I don't even think that's going to happen.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because he did more with less. Their last year wasn't there a running back a walk on, and he was
the Schrader kid that ran all over us.
Yeah, he was.
He didn't run all over us. He was effective.
Yeah, and he rushed for over. I think he led the SEC in rushing, and so he can obviously coach. My question is, can he recruit, and does he understand the footprint of Ohio State?
Yeah.
And honestly, I circled back to Peppy Pearson. I mean,
Peppy, Scotty Graham. That's quiet. I don't know if he's got. One. I don't know if he's got a buyout at Washington. With the move over there with Fish. When he left Arizona, it's just the timing. The timing sucks. Tony Gerdeman had a good quote, and I don't know if it was a direct quote or if it was just kind of an aha moment. And basically what he said is that while recruiting is important, Ryan is not going to not hire somebody just because they don't have the recruiting experience. And he used Hartline as an example. He says if he used that approach with Hartline would have never got hired, right?
Yeah.
Here's one, and this literally just popped into my head while I was driving this morning.
Okay.
And I'm gonna set the table for this. There's been a lot of talk about Chip Kelly and how many positions he's coached through his career. I mean, he's been a defensive coordinator. He's coached the O-line. He's coached running backs. He's basically coached every position. And, the older guys, that's kind of the way you did it, right? That's the way you became a head coach was you had that, that multiple position experience on your resume. What about Corey Dennis? Is that bridge been burned? Corey was a great recruiter. He knows Ohio State. The kids love him.
Yeah. I don't know if he'd come back.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that has that bridge been burned?
I'd have to say yes, just because, they didn't offer to extend him, and then even if they did, they were going to demote him to an analyst, so that that's. And you were, put the passing game coordinator.
To make room for Chip Kelly, man.
I know.
Bill O'Brien.
I understand. I'm not fighting that. I'm just saying, that would be, as an individual, as a human, for myself, that would be hard to swallow.
Okay, well, let me ask you this: if he would you? But you just not like it?
I don't like the fit. It's the same thing with JT Barrett. I'd love to have him on staff as an offensive analyst. And JT was really good at running the zone read. I'll give you that. He was kind of a quarterback running back. But
he was
I don't know. I don't know. If I'm being honest, I don't like any of their options. So, if you want me to be straight, I don't like any of it. The lesser of the evils for me was Peppy Pearson, because I feel like at least he's an alum and understands Ohio State. And then he lived in the Cooper era, so he knows like how infuriating it is to lose to Michigan. Yeah. So he brings that with him, So like that's kind of why I like traveled down that road a little bit. The rest of them, I like Scotty, but yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling a little bit, I think. And
I would
I'm
go
sure
Scotty over. I'd go Scotty over Pepe based on resume.
So all that to say, folks, I don't know what the hell they're going to do, but they need to do it soon. So,
I'm not confident they will.
Okay.
And there's an inkling of me that is worried they don't do anything at all.
I have a hard time seeing that, but
I do too, but it's starting to creep into my mind.
Yeah, I get it. Well, once you get so far down the list, what are you doing? So, and then I wonder if Zeke's phone's ringing. So, all right. So, we'll time will tell on that one. I am curious to see what happens. So, I finally caught up on just about everything out of spring practice, bunch of news, notes, talks. And it sounds like JJ Smith is the real deal. We knew that. But one of the key components was how much flexibility he's allowing, and his ability to flex inside or outside, but allowing them to also utilize other players in different positions. So there was some discussion around how Carnell Tate could play outside, and then it would let Bryson Rogers play outside, and Jeremiah could play in the slot, and getting and allowing for different types and different rotations. So, what are your thoughts? You like it?
Yeah, I mean, they've got to get the kid on the field. I mean, there's starting to be some things that are leaking out from the controlled, I don't even want to call it a scrimmage, from this past Saturday.
Yeah.
They basically had team periods, right? But, there's talk of him absolutely destroying Iggy.
Oh, yeah, I did.
For a touchdown.
Yeah.
There is talk of him ripping an interception out of the arms of Jermaine Matthews, like literally ripping it out of his arms. I mean, the kid is a freak. It's a cliche, but that's the word that everybody keeps coming back with. And when the players on the team use it, I'm going to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen a player like that in a really long time. And I was honestly trying to remember one, and the only one I can remember, and this isn't even a fair comparison, was Cam Newton, and he came as a JUCO.
Yeah, he came in as a JUCO. He was also at Florida for a year and didn't play before he went to Auburn. I'll tell you what, I saw Julio Jones playing the Under Armour All-American game in Orlando when I was living down there, and when, whatever his year was, it was 07 or 08.
Yeah.
And I just remember being down at field level and seeing him walk by and then watching him play and thinking to myself, he failed sixth grade 8 times because he's got to be 26, 27 years old.
Right.
That's the vibe I get from JJ.
Yeah. The other one I would say was Nick Bosa, because Nick Bosa came in a man-child and ready to play as a freshman. So, Joe Bosa didn't really even do that as a freshman. He played some, but not a lot. It was his sophomore year when he broke out. It's that, so yeah, Nick Bosa was another one. But like, as far as athletic freaks on the offense, Julio Jones is a fantastic comparison. Although I think Jeremiah's upside, and he's taller, is better than Julio's. But you and I have, I know we share a lot of the insider information that we get, and we are not insiders. I'm not.
No.
We're just fans. We just know some people. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, when I started hearing that they were putting Jeremiah Smith in the slot, I was like, what? And then yesterday, Berm brought up Bryson Rogers again.
Yeah.
So, I'm not crazy. I promise. Like, I when he came back, I had this feeling, because Antwi just hasn't done anything. Ballard, like you said, just seems happy to be there. So who's up? It's Bryson Rogers, man. And listen, how deep is that room really?
You heard the same thing out of Hartline's mouth about Ballard that we've heard for the last 3 years. Like, he's going to need to step up. I mean, we're in year 4 and they're still looking for him to step up. I mean, I don't get it. You know, there's not many times in a game where you get to run untouched in a straight line, vertical, you know, so where's his value? I don't know. He's a good kid.
Yeah.
But I you know, they're talking about Ennis is kind of getting that Deebo Samuel, you know, Xavier
they
Johnson
were handing the ball
treatment.
off to him. Yeah. He's taking handoffs.
I mean, Chip's got to be like a kid in a candy store, right? And then I wouldn't be shocked. If Emeka's in the slot and JJ and Carnell are on the outside.
Oh, it wouldn't shock me at all. Wouldn't shock me at all. Like you and I agree that I think Emeka Egbuka's future is the Wes Welker type.
Hines
now he's
Ward
faster.
Type thing.
Yeah. Hines Ward's a better comparison. Yeah. So like slot, can
Jarvis Landry
can play on the outside. Yeah. If you need him to. And, but he's just not as big bodied as Tate or Smith. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Emeka Egbuka is going to have a monster season. He's because of the amount of attention there's going to be put, like the amount of stress that the Ohio State can put on the defense this year is substantial. And then you start thinking about, you know, if Brandon Ennis really is a Deebo Samuel type. So just think about Brandon Ennis, you know, in almost like a Dontre Wilson role. And even though that never really panned out for Urban, but and then you have a back like either one of our backs, either Trey or Q back there, you know, gosh, I would hate to have to defend that. And then you have like one of the most talented wide receivers we've seen come through in Emeka Egbuka in your slot.
Yep.
So yeah, it's exciting. That offense is exciting, man.
Yeah, no, I cannot wait. You know, with Fox announcing that they're going to be filming the spring game now, I'm wondering what that does. I don't know if that makes Ryan be way more conservative. I mean, it was on the Big Ten Network in the past, so it's not like it wasn't out there.
But it was delayed too, wasn't it? Wasn't it usually delayed? Like it was recorded?
Maybe.
No, you're right. They did show it. I'm always at it, so I don't ever know. I usually just rewatch it.
I always taped it and watched it later. So
yeah,
taped it. I just showed my age.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, they've got to be having a lot of fun in that offensive room.
Yeah, I would say so. And I know you had texted me, and so we'll just add this into it. So the DBs and the wide receivers taking shots at each other got you called it the dog mentality. So
psychotic competitiveness.
I'll let you talk about it a little bit, man. It's exciting,
I love it. Though. I mean, listen, we've missed that in recent years. I can't remember the last. I mean, I don't want to go back to David Boston, but when's the last time that we had? When's the last time that we had receivers? I mean, Garrett Wilson would talk some trash.
He chirps, yeah.
You know, he chirped a little bit. I can't remember if Mike Thomas did or not. Devin Smith did. But you know, these guys are dogs, man.
Yeah,
they are absolute dogs, and the fact that you know they're talking to the DBs, and it's going back and forth. You know, they're each gonna with the depth in that room and the talent in those rooms, it's gonna go back and forth. Like nobody's gonna dominate, you know, day in and day out, and it's just we need that attitude, man. Like you just in those positions, we need that.
Yeah. So one thing I've heard, and is I believe to be absolutely accurate, is that the DBs are winning more right now than the wide receivers are. And when is the last time we have said that about Ohio State in the last, I don't know, since 2019, that Ohio State's DBs are dominating our wide receivers. And normally, I shouldn't say dominating. They're getting to the ball. There's a lot of pass breakups. There's been some, you know, so yeah, good things coming.
Yeah. Defense is usually ahead at this time of the year, but you're right. I mean, our wide receiver room has been so loaded, and up until last year, our DBs, you know, there's, you know, for lack of a better description, there was a confidence problem.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Not now, though.
No, not at all. All right. So I like it. I like the dog mentality. I've heard that there's been some pushing and shoving and grabbing and chirping and talking, and that's great. And then some shots in the media too. So that's to be expected a little bit, And I mean, there's a reason those dudes are all alpha males. They're all competitors. Everybody wants to win, and they're just making each other better. Iron sharpens iron. So, I was floored. And I'm literally mean this. I text you when I was watching Ryan Day's presser, and I was sitting in my hotel in London, and I'm listening to this, and I was like, did he really just re-emphasize Josh Fryer again? And didn't know what to think of it. Where are you at on this? Because I know that all indications are Ryan Luke Montgomery looks really, really good and looks the part at guard. So where are you at on this Fryer thing, man?
Well, let's talk about Luke. I'm hearing that Fryer's going to slide inside.
Not what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's really, really talked up Josh, but he said in that same press conference that he could slide inside. I will not be surprised. I'm not going to say I'll be shocked, but I won't be surprised if Fryer's inside and Montgomery's outside when the season starts. And here's why. Fryer's future is at guard in the NFL, and I think he wants to play there, and I think he's in the coach's ear about playing there. So that's just me. With that being said, I mean, Fryer, he was an Iron Buckeye. He was one of 3. And that's not easy to get, man. That's not easy to get like that. Like you not only do you you never miss a workout. Okay. Big deal. You should never miss a workout anyways, but just, that's leadership. That's performance. That's improvement. That's competitiveness. That's winning more than you're losing. That is a big deal. And I'm not as worried about the offensive line as I have been in the past. I have a new position I'm really worried about, though, if you want to talk about it. But I want to hear your take on the Fryer thing first.
Yeah. So the only reason I have a hard time seeing the Fryer inside thing is because I even listening to some of the quote unquote insiders, they're saying that Montgomery just doesn't have the length, and he's got the nice round figure for being a pulling guard, and there's so many qualities that they like about him in that position that I'm not saying Fryer can't do that, but Fryer's not nearly as nimble as Luke Montgomery, period. He's just not. And one of the things I was listening to was basically saying that Fryer is last year was still working out his kick step, still, and same with Josh Simmons, they flip sides, and so I'll caveat that by saying that one of the major people that I trust inside of college football is Josh Pate. And if Josh Pate is saying that the transfer portal is going to be absolutely insane in April, I believe him, because he's probably one of the most well-connected people nationally. And, he's saying that certain schools are going to lose entire position groups. And, and I'm assuming it's in the South somewhere. That said, that would be the only way I could see Fryer sliding inside, would be if they went out and got, I'm not going to use Caden Proctor, but a right tackle that the kid from BC, whatever, that plug and play. And then, you say, Luke, we need you to be the sixth man. And that's how I see that shaking out, but maybe you see it differently. But I just I'm having a hard time with it. If I'm being honest.
I've just heard enough that Fryer wants to play guard. And that's where his future is.
I know. Yeah, it is. You're not wrong. I mean, I think we need to play Luke Montgomery. I think you need to develop that position, and I think he's the best fit there. And we're not at practice. We don't see everything, but we hear a lot. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, the other guy that, you're hearing a lot about, and this one kind of surprised me, is that Simmons is apparently a freak.
Yeah, he is.
Like his athletic ability and apparently with him, it's all pure, right? Like he has to decide, he has to have the want to be elite and dominant on every snap. But his physical skills are so much greater. I think people forget that he never played left tackle until last year.
No, he switched from the right side because that was the talk all spring was about or I guess summer him having to rework his kick step, first hand, everything, like everything's opposite from the right side. So he's everything he was working with was with his non-dominant leg, non-dominant hand. And so it was if you go back to when I was doing my other podcast, you'll hear me talk about that. Like I did an entire film breakdown of it.
It's I'm not worried. I'm no longer worried about the offensive line. Position I'm worried about now, and I think it's going to impact some of the sets that we're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really worried about tight end. Kazmarek seems to have taken a step back.
He's regressed a little bit, yeah.
I love G. Scott. I love the kid. I love his dad.
Great family.
Great family, but I don't know. I mean, maybe he falls in and takes over for Cade and we see something that we haven't seen in the past, but just some of the stuff I saw on film last year tells me that he's just not the guy there. And Jelani apparently, I don't know how else to say it, but I don't think the kid's mature. And, he's not an inline blocking tight end anyways.
No.
So that's the position I'm worried about right now. Everything else just seems to be falling in place.
Again, and this is just me, but I'm sitting back and just kind of watching spring practice. And you're right. Like I'm concerned to a point where we're Ohio State. So I think if we needed to do something, we can in April. And now you may not go get Colton Loveland or Copeland Loveland. Or
I don't want anyone from that school.
No, I'm just saying I'm just using as an example. Like,
I know
of a great some good tight ends. We may not, you may not find him, but you could find yourself a nice solid blocking tight end, and I think we'll be okay. So I'm not. Heck, let Luke Montgomery play tight end. All right. So, I'm with you. I think so. I've talked about it, like positions we have a little concern around. I mentioned linebacker. I understand your tight ends thoughts too. And so my last little segue is we talked a little bit about recruiting at the top of the hour. So do we have a boom coming? TJ Alford on the 30th. Where are you at on this? Are you 60, 40, 70, 30?
We touched on it earlier. I'm close to 80 or 90% that we're going to have that kid. I just all signs point to him being a Buckeye.
Yeah.
I do think he's having a little bit of fun in the Twitterverse.
Yeah.
I mean, he said Ohio State 10 out of 10. He tweeted it after his visit, but then next day he's in Knoxville. Then but that's you pass through Knoxville on the way back down to Florida if they were driving, which I'm assuming they were. It's going to be a long recruitment. Anytime we've got a kid in Florida, it's going to be a long recruitment. The quarterback thing is getting interesting. With Jared Curtis committing to Georgia. Now, granted, I mean, we've already got the 25 class, but we could see one of our next booms being a 26 quarterback. Just because those dominoes are starting to fall. I mean, McIntyre committed to Tennessee. I think he's 26. He might be 25. Yeah. But Jared Curtis, number one guy commits. Usually once that happens, you start to see, and the quarterbacks are usually the ones that fall into place first. Schools want to get that done.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we're going to see Alford next. Maybe Dorian Brew. I doubt it. Justin Hill, I feel really, really good about, but him and his mother have birthdays in July. I think it's July, maybe June.
It's the summer.
Yeah, and so we're not going to see anything before then. maybe I don't know. I think Alfred's next. I want him to be next.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree with you. So, if you wanted me to give like a stat, just for reference purposes, I'm at like 92%. I'd say
92. So you feel better than I do. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always an off chance that the late bag drop, the late phone call, the late anything in this era that we're in. But I think I feel really good about it because of James Laurinaitis and his and listening to Alford, he multiple times references James Laurinaitis, and it's the same thing with Brian Hartline. I think that James Laurinaitis will get to the point where if he's going to a school and he shows up, all the other schools just take a step back, because it's what happens with Hartline. When Hartline walks into the school, all the other all the other recruiters just kind of hang their head a little bit,
Yeah.
So I think we'll get to that point with Laurinaitis. So yeah, I agree with you. I think I like Alfred. I think he's the next one, and then I wouldn't be shocked to see Diabell in the near future. Dorian Brew. I've taken a large step back because I want to see what happens with Trey McNutt. I have a hard time seeing them getting 3 top 100 safeties in this class, and that's really where they see Brew, I think, is at safety. So hard to say.
I mean, it's a safety-friendly defense.
It is. I'm just saying. I have a hard time seeing that. So
our boy Jux, he doesn't have a good feeling about McNutt anymore.
I disagree.
Yeah, it kind of caught me off guard when I heard that. I do know he's got a little bit of a relationship with him, so to hear that made me wonder a little bit. So who knows?
I don't know.
It's the silly season, right? So
it is. You just don't know. You really don't, and we'll see. All right, man. That's it for today for me. We're
not going to talk about the quarterbacks.
Well, okay. So listen, I'll talk about the quarterbacks a little bit. So let me just say that, like, being away from most of my media and everything for a week was really hard, because I even on the plane I was listening to podcasts and like making notes and trying to catch up, and then I was messaging you and messaging my friends and trying to. And it was hard, man. Like I did not like that. That was not fun for me. Trying to keep up on everything, and definitely an impact. But yeah, so fire away, man. I was going to give you any last questions.
Well, I mean, it's been decided Julian Saint's going to start this year, isn't he? According to
Scoop
all
World Order,
all the different outlets out there.
Yeah.
No, I think that. I mean, it's 5 practices. I mean, I don't have a prediction anymore. I don't. It depends on what day and what time of the day it is as to how I think it's going to play out. I did see somebody project. I'm starting to see more people project that Brown is actually going to pull it out, which is surprising to me. But it's too early, man. It's too early.
Yeah. So I mean, if you think about it, and this is I'd said this to one of my other friends who was asking me some questions. I feel like they've had maybe a practice and a half where they're actually even hitting, blocking, not playing on air. And when I watched some of the videos from the pro day of the balls coming out of the hands of Will Howard and Devin Brown, I'm going to nod to Devin. It was clear that his ball had more zip. There was no doubt. I could see it. You could hear it. It was evident.
Yeah.
So there is that. And you make of that what you will. It's routes on air on pro day. By the way, Xavier Johnson looked really good at his pro day.
I think he's going to get drafted.
I think so too. I think somebody. I always joke that he's going to be one of those players, and you know this about me. That like now Belichick's not around anymore, but Belichick would draft in like the 6th round with some compensatory pick, and then he lasts 15 years in the NFL, and he's a slot guy, return guy, everything guy, and makes a career of it. So, and I do, and I love Xavier Johnson. I think he's just such a class act, and I think he'll do well in the next level.
Well, here, how about this? There's a lot of chatter about Pittsburgh going after Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
How about a replacement for Deebo in San Francisco?
That would be great. More Buckeyes, the better. Yeah. And I think the funniest part of any chatter I've heard is that somebody tweeting that J.J. McCarthy going 2nd overall, and I'm like, it's a Washington, and that's the reason that the Washington football team are the new version of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, right. I mean, I am struggling so much with the J.J. McCarthy thing, and it's not. This has nothing to do with him being a Michigan guy.
I don't.
I mean, there's part of me from a competitor standpoint that actually likes the kid, and I hope I didn't just ruin viewership. But if I'm being an honest human, there's part of me that wishes we had him last year. I mean, you're not being honest with yourself if you say otherwise.
No, I'm being honest with myself, and I didn't want him. I didn't want him when they were recruiting him.
Well, he's better than he would have been better than Kyle. But I'm trying to gain perspective. But the thing, Harbaugh's a freaking weirdo, man. I mean, he just that interview he gave yesterday. He's just he's a weirdo, and
have they tested him for CTE? Does anybody know?
I don't know. There's rumors that he might be like a little like an Elon Musk with Asperger's type thing. But obviously incredibly high functioning. But he's just weird. And for him to go on a limb and say that, it's like, hey, listen, buddy, you're sitting at number 5. Put your money where your mouth is. I'm sure you can get a load of picks for Herbert.
Yeah.
Go ahead and draft him.
Yeah.
It'll be better for your salary cap. If he's the best quarterback you've ever seen during a pro day, go ahead, trade Herbert, get a load of draft picks, get that cap relief, and build around your boy. Put your money where your mouth is.
I have a deal. Here, you trade us Justin Herbert, and I will trade you Deshaun Watson, and and you give us some, and I'll give you some picks, and we'll call it even. So Jim Harbaugh, you're on the clock, man.
Can you imagine khakis with Massage Boy?
No, I can't, but I don't want him in Cleveland either.
Yeah, I'm about done with him too. He's this is a prove it or lose it year. I'm still trying to figure out if we can get out of the contract somehow.
I don't know, but all I know is I hit all my crab legs. So because they brought in Jameis Winston.
Yeah. Did you see the exchange between him and Bruce Arians the other day?
Yeah, that was odd.
I thought it was hilarious. You talk about his vision, and he's like, man, he goes, you guys are harping on one season. He goes, that was before I had LASIK surgery. I used to think Bruce Arians was black. And Bruce is like, man, that explains so much. I always wondered why you would introduce me like that.
Yeah.
But
okay. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe to me in my brain, I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, I followed Bruce quite a bit when he was in Arizona because I lived out there for a while. And even though it was after I left, I still followed him. And Bruce has got that, he's got that sense of humor. He's a pretty funny guy.
Yeah.
But, going back to the quarterback thing, who knows? I will go out on a limb and say, bold prediction.
Bold peas.
I think we lose 2 guys to the portal.
Okay.
From that room. I'm not going to say who. I just think that we will.
I think we will lose 1, but and I won't say who.
Yeah.
But that.
Yeah.
I'm at 1 till next year, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, if you're not going to play, why stick around?
Ryan MFN Day. That's why you stick around.
But if you're not going to play.
I know, but you still get coached up.
I mean, listen, Matt Castle was an exception, not a rule, right?
Okay.
It's incredibly rare for somebody to never play a college game and get drafted like that. I don't know. I just, in this day and age, I could see 2 guys leaving.
I have a hard time with that, but I'm not going to argue that, but I would. I could absolutely see one person leaving because I know Ryan likes to have 4 scholarship quarterbacks. But you and I also know some things that maybe we discussed some things that shouldn't say no. We discussed some things that like could change a lot of that. Devin Brown being the leader in the clubhouse and taking over the first team, and that could lead Will Howard to transfer out. Like, there's a lot that could transpire here. So I mean, it's 5 practices. So yeah. All right, man. Well, we're at like 50 minutes.
Yeah. Well, we had some catching up to do. So.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So we'll be back for Buckeye Friday as usual. If you guys could like and subscribe, our subscribing count just keeps climbing. So appreciate you guys and all of your listening. Also, thanks for forgiving us for last week. I almost gave Dan just a login for our studio just because there was just nothing I could do. There was absolutely it was miserable. And if you want to know, you can DM me and I'll tell you the adventure of 22 hours of plane rides. So
yeah, I can't. Were you Steve Martin or John Candy?
John Candy, I feel like.
You're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Your text messages, man. I felt for you.
Yeah, I mean, if there was, and shout out to the Marjorie at American Airlines. I want to tell you this story. So my first flight from London to New York got canceled. Okay, so then I get rebooked on a British Airways flight to Philadelphia. So now I've got to figure out my connecting flight, anyways. And so this flight is now delayed 5 hours because of fog. So finally, I get on the plane. I'm on the plane. Fantastic. And I'm in business class, which is even better because I can kind of kick back and relax. Stewardess comes down. And she's like my grandma age, Sorry, Marjorie. But her granddaughter is getting ready to enroll in the Ohio State University, and she's in the band. Oh. She said, I love the band. Okay, so she came up and she goes, Ohio State. She's like, you're my new favorite person. She's like, I don't get to see that very much because she runs Philly to London a lot.
Yep.
And so we're talking and we build up a rapport. And I was like, yeah, I have a podcast. And she's like, oh, really? She's like, my husband is friends with Paul Warfield, and that's how I became an Ohio State fan.
Oh,
and I was like, yes, isn't that like the most random thing?
Oh yeah.
And I had my Block O hat on, and what was funny is when I was over there, so you can see the Buckeye leaf.
Yep.
Is the amount of people that asked me
they
what
thought
that
you were
was.
A dealer.
Yeah, they thought it was drugs, man. Not a joke. So even people I worked with were like, I never pictured you as and I'm like, whoa, what? No, it's a Buckeye leaf. But yeah, so Marjorie, American Airlines, you made my experience so much better. So thank you.
That's awesome.
If you hear this, I gave her the information for our podcast. So if you hear this is to you. Thank you for making my day a little bit better and a little bit brighter. And hi, Paul Warfield. So. Yeah, man. So that's my rando story I didn't get to tell you.
Nice.
So that was probably one of the coolest parts of the whole thing after what seemed like forever. So yeah, man, I'm home, and yeah, I know when I was texting you, I called my wife and I was like, I don't know if I've ever been this anxious and frustrated all at the same time to try because I'll tell you, I can tell the audience, I didn't have a rental car. We had a car service. So I was just stuck. There was nothing I could do.
Hey, a car service sounds like a great idea for Athens, Georgia. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Sounds like it would be. Yeah. That way you don't get caught for underage alcohol, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, that's my story for Marjorie. I appreciate you guys. Have a good week. Dan, any last words, man?
No, man, just subscribe, share. We get a lot more views than we have subscribers. So if you enjoy it and you're watching us, go ahead and subscribe.
Yep.
It would really help us out. We'd appreciate it. Have a lot of fun with this, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and also, I wanted to like shout out Jux on Bucks. Like I know you got to know him, and then I've got to know him a little bit too, and trying to help him out with some technical stuff. So if you check out his pod too, we're just fans. We're just fans, and we enjoy doing this. So thank you guys, and have a good week. We'll see you for Buckeye Friday, and as always, take care. See you.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.